Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Contact Lost, a special one. The WTC is coming right up, and it is about time that we do a studio briefing of sorts. So, once again, we'll be bringing the studio stream for your viewing and listening pleasure straight from the event in Mechelen. And that will be myself, Nathan, known as StatsDad from StatCheck, and Danny, whom we've introduced recently as a new member of the Contactless crew. He's also coming to help out at the WTC and do some expertise comments from meta stuff and thingies. Beautifully said. Today we're going to be talking about the event itself, what we'll be doing there, what we've done last year, and see if we can learn from it, and just general 40k. First of all, though, a massive thank you to our patrons and our sponsors at the Army Painter and Weyland-Yutani. Nathan, how are you feeling about your trip to Europe for the event?
I'm feeling pretty good about it, really. Last year, going to Belgium was great. Getting to see the War Masters and then getting to do all of the interviews that we did and then participating in the WTC event itself was great. Like, I think we learned a lot about how running a audio stream in a hangar is really hard. And how after like a week of streaming for like 10 hours a day, basically every day, your body kind of gives out towards the last day. Because I think on that last day, people were doing shoeies. People were like laying on the floor. It was quite something. People were having a day at the end there.
Yeah, definitely.
I've never seen so many grown men weep after winning while playing 40K. Just uncontrollable weeping. And I've never seen so many people drink so much on the last day of an event either. Or seen people trade bags of alcohol in exchange for goods and services. That just doesn't happen very often in any place else, I think.
I'm
really excited.
Like tradition over here, so.
I mean, in the United States, I guess if I came to an event and I was like, "Thank you for your coaching. Here is 2 bags of alcohol," people would probably give me a look. But I understood. I understood once it was explained to me what was going on. But yeah, I'm like really excited to go back. Innes has convinced me, Innes Wilson of Team Scotland fame has convinced me to stop in Scotland on the way over. So that'll be really nice. I've never been to the UK before, so it'll be a new experience for me.
Okay, sounds fun.
I'm excited. How about you, Danny? What are you looking forward to?
Hopefully not already hot weather. The last time I was there was 2022, and it was like 37 degrees and there was no aircon, so the hangar itself was like a furnace.
Yeah, so, last year
it was better last year, wasn't it?
Yeah, last year was very mild. It was very seasonable comparatively. It was like
that's good. It's awful when it's really hot and muggy, and there's no air or anything like that. Airflow. It's just it's unbearable. For me, the WTC is going to be out when we've got the new rules pack. I believe that's been voted in, if that's correct, because it is in the cutoff. So I'm very excited actually to see how teams sort of handle this as it's just been announced. Because it's a 1 month prep, isn't it? So this is an exciting thing to see how they handle that pressure, how they react to this and start altering all their plans, which is anarchy, chaos is what we're here for.
We've chosen the maximum.
It's still better than it was like option. 2 years ago when they released a new rule set like a week before the cutoff date. Now it's a month. So
as opposed to last year where it was a brand new edition a month before.
That's probably worse. As well.
Yes.
Yep.
Oh no, I think it's going to be interesting because people will have like a lot of time with it, right? Before list submit, but the rules cutoff being July 1st means we get like 2 codexes plus a new mission pack sneaking in like right at the deadline.
And a possible data slate, depending on when they launch that. If they do before or after.
Yeah, if they do it like right away at the beginning of July, end of June.
The last one was end of April. That would be pretty surprising, I think, if another one made the cutoff date. Or they're going to do one at the end of July, and it's going to throw a lot of the game upside down. So the WTC will be like old news, and it will be awkward for everyone. Hopefully not.
Have the captains then voted for like a complete and official cutoff for rules now? Because I've heard at one point that the captains were thinking about changing the rules cutoff again to be later because of the new codexes and then this rules update to see if they were going to catch like an FAQ or anything on the other end. I can't remember anymore.
Yeah, I think they had that vote saying no more votes for letting stuff in. The deadline is a hard deadline, and that's it. And surprisingly, we are getting these both new missions and new codices a month as before the cutoff, as we've been saying. So we're
And when
recording
is the
this
deadline?
on 2nd
July
of June,
1st.
and there's just been a pre-order for that.
2nd
The
of June?
deadline is 2nd of June
July,
is today as
July.
we're recording
Yes,
it. Just to put it into
okay.
perspective for listeners, that we're saying that it's just been announced, the new rules pack, or more the pre-order for it. No, the rules cutoff is 1st July, I think.
Yep.
Okay, and tomorrow is the actual registration deadline for teams. So the timing for this, what we're doing here, couldn't be better. If you're planning to attend the WTC as a national team, this is like your last chance to actually sign up.
Depends when
but
you post this video. If you post it the day after.
Oh no, I'll post it after my midnight and your midnight. So it's still going to be 2nd of June in America, probably. If you want to listen to this, it's going to be premiering. Nevertheless, from our perspective, this is important also, as the seedings will be known shortly, and then we can start drafting groups of death and stuff like that. So it's going to be fun.
Nice.
Which
So
means it's time to start
WTC and
doing-
the Euros, it's such a good summer.
Yeah,
Euros is football, by the way, Nathan, in case you didn't know, not soccer, football.
Oh, sorry. I wouldn't know.
not hand egg.
Yeah. I
hand-
thought that
not
in there
hand
just
foot.
before someone says it's soccer. No, it's football. It's football.
I love that. Can you just do that accent for the rest of the video? I love it. I'm here for it.
Just copy my accent from Anthony Vanilla.
I will record some lines from Anthony just for you to practice.
Oh,
Is what I'll
thank
do,
you.
Danny. I'll do it just
Thank
for you.
That would be amazing.
So it's the Euro Cup. Is that what we're talking about? Okay.
Exactly. So that and the WTC is like the most exciting summer ever.
And England will still win neither of those. So I don't know.
Yes. It's not coming home in either way.
No way.
Who is favored for the Euro Cup then? I want to know.
I don't know. France, Germany, Spain, the usual, I guess.
That
Not
seems
England.
fair.
It's
You could
always
say
England
England's
for us.
actually up there, but
Yeah, we always get favored, and then we always sort of shit the bed like halfway through, and then with
That
that,
also
like
sounds like the WTC.
exactly. It's in our blood. It's in a tradition. So
Just to completely waylay us in the wrong direction. But I guess who are our favorites then for WTC this year? Let's talk about that for a second before we get into our ins and outs, I guess.
Ooh.
okay.
From my perspective, I have to say, because I've been involved in quite a few sort of, obviously being heavily involved in Poland, I've been in quite a few training, let's say, tournaments. So there's the Pyra, then there has been a lot of scrims. There's been like reports and information from a lot of other events that are happening. And for me, I have to say, America has been impressive. The level that they've gone to in order to do the whole prep, get the team together, the whole charter, come together as an organization rather than like sort of different bodies pitted against each other. It's very unified and it's really impressive to see. So my money would actually have to be on America, I would say. And then
I think
Poland,
I agree
obviously.
with that.
Yeah. I think I would go with you can never, ever count Poland out of anything. When it comes to WTC, other things, maybe not. I don't know. I don't know
The
where they'll
Euros.
stand in
So
soccer.
the Euros, you can definitely write Poland off.
I think it'll be interesting to see what the United States does because they put a lot of effort, like you said, Danny, into like revitalizing, kind of informing the structure, forming a team that's like really more of a team, and like much more of a talent development system than previous years. Like they've actually formed an entire organization and structure around creating a team. So it's hard to not see them doing well because of that. But England has also won a bunch of team events with their teams of various kinds, so it'll be interesting to see how that plays out, I suppose. But like we just said, England always stumbles somewhere, right? So why not?
England have an interesting lineup. I think the loss of Josh Roberts this year is probably going to hurt them. However, they have a few new people that have never been to a WTC, so they could be a dark horse in the sense of like the top three. But yeah, definitely, I would say definitely top three for me. If I had to pick a top three right now, would be definitely America, Poland, but then it could be a range of either like Germany, England, and then probably France. France are looking quite solid because they've I think from what I understand is they've taken a little bit of a reshuffle in how they do things as well. Not to the same standard as like size of the US have done it, but they look like they've got a quite strong team. So.
Yeah, but they're also quite big on it. If we spoke to them last year, I've had a chat with Zika before Pyra, so 40K is actually quite big in France, which not everyone might be aware of.
They have their national leagues team system, which is really cool. So like the whole of France has got like I don't know like 1,000 teams or something silly, and they have a league where all the teams. I think it's like a local. Each area's local leagues, and then towards they have like a big championship or something at the end. It's a really cool system, actually.
Yeah, I think they've got like 4 tiers of leagues, and then obviously if you win like the master one or whatever you want to call it, then you get not only bragging rights but actual like influence on the national team, I think. So yeah, it's really cool. But what about Australia? They've sneaked in a 3rd place finish last year. They won the year before that, and as far as I know, they've had a massive team overhaul now. So what are we looking at their chances?
I think it's always hard to count. It's hard to count Australia out, right? Because Australia has done well recently, but they really kind of like stumbled pretty hardcore before catching themselves kind of on the other end of it and kind of submarining their way to a 3rd place finish. I don't think they really expected that their method of getting to the podium was going to be by losing immediately and then kind of needing to go back up through the ranks. But also, like, you never hear anything about Australia because Australia doesn't participate in like any of the European team events because of how expensive it is to travel and how much time it takes to travel. So it's like a mystery, I think, to a lot of people. And the team has gone through a huge overhaul and has lost a bunch of the people from previous years. So I don't know. I actually expect Team Australia to fall out of like the top 5 and maybe into like the low end of the top 10 for end placings. We'll see kind of how that works out, though. You never really know. And it feels like very hard to like make that claim. But at the same time, it's like, I don't know. It's kind of a prove it year for Australia in that way, that they've got to kind of prove that their team performance is going to be different this year than last.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there's layers to the squad and not just the big names we've known so far to deliver results. Right. And
Joker, I know it's just number 1 Poland, number 2 Poland, and number 3 Poland for you in your heart.
Well, obviously. I mean, I'd die for this flag, of course.
If they get 4th now, it's entirely your fault. I'll blame you.
Oh, we're gonna say Joker's the jinx for Team Poland at this point. Okay, I accept this.
No, don't do that.
We're gonna clip this moment, and we'll come back to it later. Okay, that's what we're gonna do. Although I will also say that one of my highlights of last year was watching Tomek, who's no longer with Contact Loss. go from kind of disinterested to full-blown to Polish patriot by the end of WTC when they won. That transition from like, it's okay if they don't do well, to basically carrying the flag like as a cape and running down the hallways was amazing.
Yeah, that was definitely an unexpected character development arc.
Do
Yeah,
you
we've
want to
had
talk
some of
about?
those.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Joker.
No, I was just saying we've had some of those. Typhus has also gone through quite a lot of emotions during the event. We've seen him run, never before and never after. So that was something. Yeah, unfortunately, or fortunately for Team Poland, Typhus is more involved with them this year. So unfortunately for us, not going to be part of the studio stream. We're also going to be missing Nathan Roberts. A big shout out to him. I really loved his cheeky one-liners last year, so I'm going to miss them, even if I was the victim of at least some of them. But it was fun.
90% of them, but yes, some.
Yeah. Some. You didn't have to bring it up.
You can't blame me for bringing it up, Joker.
That's fair. You guys are also going to be playing the War Masters single event. That's also becoming a little bit bigger than it was last year and the year before. What are your expectations from that, like warm-up event, if you will? Danny, you want to start us off?
Expectations in what sense?
What's it gonna be like? How you're gonna perform? If you got any like objectives, you
I'm
wanna
going
wipe
to
the
win
floor
it,
with the Polish
Joker.
guys
I'm
that
gonna
didn't
win
pick
it is
you?
what I'm gonna do.
Yeah,
I don't
see,
know.
there we go.
I don't know. It depends who's going. Actually, I think from what I understand, a lot of teams this year are telling their players not to go. From what I've heard,
Okay.
whether that like sort of facilitates later down the line, we'll find out. But I'm hoping a lot of them do, because I like to see a lot of competition in this event. There's a lot of potential for it to be the best singles event of the year. You know, with all the teams coming, all the best players in the world coming. So it'd be fantastic if we did have all the big names back, basically a lot of, if someone represented each country as well, I think it would be fantastic to see. How big it is, I have no idea. I've not really looked at it yet. I haven't really put any
crossed
thought into
400 people.
I should probably buy my ticket then.
So it is actually going to be one of the larger singles events, across the globe. Like, I think that puts it in like the top 3, perhaps. Because other than that, you've got the LGT and the LVO, right? I don't think any of the other events reach like those numbers.
You'd have to sell, I think, about
spitballing.
1.5 times more tickets, I think, to hit LVO size. Because I think LVO is around like 700-ish people.
Yeah, and so is LGT. But I don't know if that's why I'm saying it's probably 3rd. But I don't know how many like sock-out rings or whatever you have in the US.
The size, for me, the size is less important, because just because it's a big event doesn't mean that you're going to have a better quality of event.
Well,
what is important is the attendees and who's going. So like LGT LVO did fantastic events for the average player, but like the chances of you playing against somebody who's good is very low, right? Because if there's 700 people, unless you don't lose every single game, then the chances of you playing like good opponents is a lot lower. So if we go to these events, what I'm expecting is a lot of locals, but also a lot of more skilled players that want to come and try and join in, the most competitive singles event, which is what my expectations are for this. So I'll see. But I'm excited for it, actually. I went there 2 years ago and it's a really fun event.
And as for teams, I remember it used to be a requirement for Team Poland people, if it's your debut year at the WTC, you're actually obliged to play the singles event. But I think the event has blown up a little bit since then, as in there's just more days of both the singles and the teams. So unfortunately, it does hit the pocket quite a bit. So I think that rule's been removed.
originally it was like 2 days, but now because I think now it's spread over 3 days, and you don't have that 1 day gap, especially if you
Yeah.
do quite well. Whereas before you had a
Mhm.
1 day rest period.
Yeah, if you do very
but-
well, you have like 4 hours, right?
Yeah, exactly. It sort of spills over,
Finals.
which is not ideal.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
I think it's better in its current format though. Less games per day, more days is a bit more interesting.
Well, it's definitely like doesn't take so much of a toll on you as a player.
Exactly.
But obviously, well, it's more days out of work or anything if you're not doing 40K professionally, which not a lot of people still are doing. But I was actually taken aback last year seeing at the levels of professionalism that teams put into this. Like, no one looked like a random ragtag of scallybags. Everyone looked really prepared, and that was really impressive, right? And we're hoping to hear more of these stories during the interviews that we will be doing as part of the run-up to the event, starting shortly. Yeah, right. Nathan, back to the War Masters. What are your expectations? You got anything like a target position you want to win, like Danny, or anything else?
I keep promising on Stat Check that I'm going to win, which would be astounding. Like, let's not say that Nathan's going to go win a super major when he's never won a super major before against like a field of top players from all around the world. That seems excessive. But I'm going in with the goal of trying to win, and we'll see what happens. Like, 90% of it is just to have fun and meet people and get to play against people from other parts of the world who you'd never get to play against ever. And kind of see and get exposed to the fact that, you know, there's a good 40K played in every single country around the world. So you get to play a bunch of people who you just don't know. And it was a lot of fun. It was very exhausting. I was very jet lagged during War Masters last year. Minus also a bunch of my models missing backpacks, which was not my fault.
I was going to comment on that. I was going to say, just make sure that this year you borrow an army from someone who has complete
You borrowed
and
an
legal
army and they
models.
had no backpacks.
So I borrowed an army from David Gaylord of Team New Zealand fame. And he was like, yeah, you can use my Death Watch army. And I was like, I don't really play Marines and I've never played Death Watch, but sure, I'm going. It's for fun. We're going to see what happens. Like, I played 1 or 2 practice games with Death Watch before showing up at War Masters, including one like hour-long session with David where he tried to teach me how to play the army, which was fine. So I got to War Masters and I started playing. I've never played with a Space Marines army. And then one day the judges come over and they walk by and they're like, looking at my army really funny. And then judges come back later and they're like, can we look at your army for a second? And I was like, sure, I'm losing this game already. Why not? And so they were looking at my army like, did you know that all your models are missing like their power packs? And I was like, I did not realize that all my models were missing their power packs.
The what now?
The what now? And so they were like, well, your options are we take all of the models missing their power packs off the table, or like you can try to figure out a replacement. And I was like, you know what? I'm way too jet lagged. I've had like 2 hours of sleep. I think I'll drop and try to find David so he can fix his backpack problem. So I found David Gaylord and I was like, look, a bunch of your models, they don't have backpacks and you're playing in the team event in like a day. So that's something you might want to figure out how to fix. And so apparently that spawned a whole thing where I think Germany brought like a bag of Death Watch power packs for David to assemble and paint over like a nighttime, basically.
Nice.
So that his Death Watch army would be okay for the team event the next day. So now I'm bringing a backpack for David this year because he'll be at the event. And I haven't decided yet if I'm going to fill that backpack with more little backpacks, but it will be at least a backpack that I'm going to give to David this year.
Nice.
Germans did a lot of savings.
They did save
heroics last year because they also saved a car coming from Poland with Skark on board. So if not for them, Poland wouldn't have won. So thank you, Germany guys.
They were probably sat there on the way back thinking, "Wait a minute, what did we do?"
We should have just left that car where it was.
That was the worst trade deal in the history of trade deals. Well, at least they didn't have to play against Poland and lose.
That's fine.
But I'm gonna see if we can win. I'm gonna bring something. I have to see whose army I'm going to borrow this year. And hopefully it will have backpacks. That's about all I can say.
I was actually gonna ask what army you're gonna take, but you've answered that question.
Oh, did I? Oh, it's
You don't know that's the answer, I guess.
Oh no, I have an army that I'm thinking of bringing. And it's gonna be
is it a secret?
No. It's one of the 2 new codexes that are being released at the end of this month because I've been painting them myself and playing games with them. So I'm kind of excited to just try that out and see how it goes. It'll definitely be since I'm not special and don't have like any special privileges, how quickly I can learn how to play an army with very little practice with new rules, which, I went 2-1-1 at War Masters with like 1 game under my belt and that was fine. So, I accept it. So it'll be fine.
That's good. At least it's a higher win percentage than loss percentage. That's what anyone can ever hope for, I suppose.
True. And it will it'll never be quite as bad as LVO, where I borrowed somebody's Votan army on a whim and had never touched a Votan model before. And so they handed me their Votan army, and I was like, man, I have actually never touched any of these models. Now I'm in trouble.
How well did you do? Did you go positive?
I went 3-2-1. So
perfect. That's still positive.
The perfect pattern.
Nice.
Just about there.
Nice. I'm not sure what army I'm gonna take. I'm in 2 minds. I either take orcs or I go back to reclaim my best in factions in my GSC. Now that the new codex is out, but I can't decide.
Your best in faction. Where did you get best in faction?
2022 at War Masters.
War Masters. So okay. Yeah. Well done, you. Yeah, you need to defend that title then.
Wasn't there last year, so I need to go and get it again this year.
You need to go retrieve it.
I need to go retrieve it.
If you weren't there, you weren't defeated, right? So
that is true. That's true.
Exactly.
That's
it's all in the mindset.
Mm-hmm. I like it. I like that philosophy, that way of looking at things. I'm undefeated if I do not participate. I cannot lose, nor can I win.
Exactly. See, I've never lost to Skark because I never played him.
I feel like
I wish I could say the same.
It's gonna send an email to Skark somehow. I don't know how you send an email to Skark, but we'll figure it out just so you can have that game against him and learn. But this also sounds like the same way that I claim a 100% win rate against Innis, because I beat him in a game with lists that were not at all good. And I was like, this is it. I'm never playing you again, Innis. Bye.
That is true. You can lord that over him the rest of his life.
I plan on it, actually. I plan on doing that every time he says anything. I'm like, well, I beat you, Innis, so I know better than you.
That's the spirit. I can get behind that logic.
Right. I've got a question from Sam, who's posted on our Discord like 2 weeks ago when we were initially planning to record this session. And he's actually got 2 questions because he's a man of questions. First one being, what are you hoping to do differently from last year? So I can start answering that one by saying we are actually bringing a techie guy with us. So Vitalis, who's not here, you might have heard of him, though. He was helping us out at both of the OGTs we participated in as Contact Lost. So he'll be running the deck at the studio stream. So hopefully that will bring better visuals and better audio and better quality in general. Nathan, have you got any ideas? You think we could do something differently than we did last year? Or was it just absolutely perfect?
Nothing is ever perfect, although we tried. And people said that we were perfect the whole time. And they did not, in fact, say that. There are a few audio things that we'll probably end up doing. I think we'll probably change out the microphones that we were using and probably do some extra little things for them. Probably some pop filters or something like that, just to control some ambient noise from the hall. I think that's like the majority of what I think we were planning on doing after the end of last year.
Yeah,
then there's
although
some
nothing's
more.
gonna help if there's like 16 people chanting USA right next to our desk, right?
It's true. There's very little that can help with those situations, and sometimes you just have to accept that we're all going to shut up while everybody chants the names of their countries out loud like Pokemon. And I think the other thing that we're going to do is we're going to try to work in some more coordination with specifically with War Games Live, with them, because they'll be back again this year, I believe. And after last year, we had talked about how while we were sitting right next to each other, we had no idea what each other was doing, and so we'll probably work a little bit more together to get kind of some more stuff kicked off. I think those were the two major lessons we took out of last year from like that. Otherwise, I think the content is going to be the same, right? Unless somebody has some kind of specific kind of content and they don't like the team captain interviews and stuff like that. Between rounds, we'll probably be doing that again, like dragging some captains over, whoever ends up getting picked or voluntold to come over and sit with us to answer questions, basically. Will come over, and I think that's kind of the extent of it. Otherwise, the coverage will basically be the same as last year from a practical perspective.
Can I have a list of people I can go and hunt down?
Oh, you can hunt anybody down. You are allowed to. You can walk up
Yeah.
to whoever you want and be like, "Hey, I want you to send a coach or a captain over to like talk to us at the studio stream," and they will do it because they've been told that they have to be helpful.
That's what power feels like.
This is what pure unadulterated power feels like. It doesn't mean you can go over like while they're doing something important and do it, but we try to do it like after rounds, during the break between rounds.
Okay, I've got a long list, and we'll go through that list.
Yeah, you just pick teams and go for it. It's fine. We'll try to pick some people who are on streams usually to interview, just because it's a little bit more fun because people have been just watching their games. So
nice, love it. Sounds amazing.
There's also going to be a new element to the whole endeavor, but this is still in the works, so I'm not going to share any more light. But do keep your eyes or more like ears open to this one, as more news will follow, and it's something that will aim at getting the wider community involved throughout the event. And then I think I was going to say something about doing stuff differently, but I completely forgot what it was. I think I was going to comment on something Nathan was saying, but I don't know what it was.
Oh no, we're going to try to replace bird questions with a different theme of questions this year.
That was the question. Yeah. That was exactly that. Have you prepared something new, like theme, other than bird combat? Because I think that's really run dry by now.
Yeah, people don't want any more bird combat. I think by the end of WTC, people were very tired of it. And they're like, Nathan, why do you keep talking about birds? But if a team wants in on a bird tattoo bet, let me know, and we'll talk to each other about it. We can do a bird tattoo bet, and we'll figure out the niceties of it. I won't even make you get America's terrible bird. You can get like the Illinois state bird and the Minnesota state bird, which are the two states that I'm from originally, like over here. It's the loon or the cardinal, I believe. So they're better birds than the bald eagle. And you won't need to worry about, if you ever come to the United States, about looking very strange. I promise.
It's funny because when you mentioned the national bird or whatever, I actually thought of the New York supreme fat pigeon rather than the bald eagle.
That's just to prove that the questions about bird combat went too far, because the first thing you thought of was the food and drug addled pigeon from New York. So if you want in on a bird bet, let me know and we'll figure out the niceties of it. I think I can take like 2 or 3 bird bets before the bird bets are too many. But I'm currently also taking any suggestions about combat between countries. I was thinking about food, because food items are fun. So we might take everybody's national dish and have you fight against each other with them.
I don't want to do this again. My God, every country is about food. Stop.
You don't get a say in this.
Yeah, we don't get to play in this fight.
I don't know. What is Poland's national dish then? UK's is like chicken tikka or something like that for some reason. Like
Chicken
For
tikka.
some reason.
something. I don't know,
Chicken
man. I
tikka,
can't.
chicken tikka masala is what you're talking about.
Yeah, that one.
Is our national dish in England is chicken tikka masala,
I
and it
think
is
that
British.
actually
It was
is.
actually made in Britain. I'm very passionate about defending British foods. All right, it's not fish and chips. Okay, it's not fish and chips. We do better.
I actually do subscribe to the thought that there are really good chefs in England. Obviously, there's one who wrote a book from snout to tail, basically, about using like all parts of an animal in like traditional English cooking. I'll remember the author later, and I'll send it to you, Danny.
Sure,
But I will give them an endless hard time about stealing curry as their national dish and running away with it.
It's
Well,
genius. Everyone likes a good curry.
It's true.
I guess we have the theme figured out then. That was smooth.
But based on how passionate and upset Danny got immediately.
I feel like I can see the general theme. We're talking about everything England can't win.
Yes. I mean, you'd have to tell me what England can in fact win so that we can
next it'll be like, I don't know, competition about the weather, and then we don't win. There's not much we do win actually. Queuing is what we destroy every country at, is the queuing system. No country can queue like the Brits.
Mm-hmm.
As I've noticed in Poland. There is no queuing in this country. It's every man for himself.
A line is just a suggestion in Poland.
Exactly. They've taken that very literally. Very literally. So anarchy. Anyway.
I'm sorry for your experiences.
I don't think you are.
He's not. He's really not. The man has no emotion.
Yep.
Or remorse.
Yep.
It's just the smile. The Polish smile is what I've come to become accustomed to when being anywhere near my contact lost folks in person.
Yes, that is what Poland will win at, is smiling. That is their one competition. As you can start now. It's broken deadlock.
Yep. Yeah.
I was going to say England can win at hooliganism. That's straight up hooliganism. There you go.
That is true. That is true. That is our one superpower, actually. Being hated on holidays is something we win at as well.
You have replaced the United States as the most hated tourist, which is an accomplishment.
Yes. We replace Germans and Americans at that, which is quite a sizable feat. So we get a trophy at least. That's always nice.
Joker, do we have anything else that we want to try to bring to this year's?
Yeah, we have a second question from Sam. So also.
We had a question in the first place.
we got to the answer and then like definitely kind of just went off a cliff. A little bit of color commentary.
Yeah, big time. Anyhow, what is going to be different this year versus last year from a competition standpoint? Danny, maybe you want to take that one.
What is going to be different from a competition standpoint? I think the competition is going to be better. So I think what we're going to see is over the last years, we've seen all the teams get closer and closer and closer, I would say. And that's usually from the inclusion of things like TTS, the scrims that everybody's been doing. It's really like bridged the gap. So what I would say this year for competition-wise is we're going to see teams that you might not necessarily expect to perform actually perform better. And I do think the top teams that you would expect to be like the top 3, the top 5, I reckon it's not going to be so obvious. So I think we'll have a lot of dark horses that will jump up, which is obviously fantastic for us as the viewers and everyone cheering all the teams on. So that's what I'm expecting. What about you guys? What do you think?
I definitely subscribe to the same theory. Ever since COVID, with like TTS becoming a much bigger tool in the community, the skill gap, as it were, has like I think mostly gone away, and everybody's kind of moved towards parity in the middle. Like some of the differences between people at that point will just be how much 40K is just available in your country to play. So like countries with a lot of 40K that they can play in person will probably have a little bit of an advantage over those that don't. Still just because of like access. But for the most part, that skill gap will have come very close together. Also due to the amount of information spread and how many teams are like interacting with one another.
Yeah.
It feels like while there is definitely still secrecy between teams, is that a lot of teams are like potting up and practicing together and stuff like that. So there's a lot more information sharing than there used to be.
Absolutely.
And that's also because of DTS, because otherwise, you know, nobody would be sharing information just because you can never talk to each other except like online about things in Discord. But instead, people are playing against each other and exchanging like material ideas back and forth.
Yeah, we're seeing a lot more team tournaments happen over the previous months, with a lot of different national teams sending a 5v5 or like an 8v8 or whatever to these team events. So I think another thing that we'll see as well is, so I fully agree with you. I think that the skill barrier and the skill differential is a lot closer, but with the game state in it as it is right now, it's kind of drawish. What I think we'll start seeing is some really, really wacky list ideas as people try and shake up the meta, bring something that teams won't be expecting. And I think that's going to be interesting to see as well, because that can just like sort of swing armies and swing teams in a different direction than we're expecting.
Yeah, I think that both of these things, so the game state and the accessibility to like information, because now we need TTS, there's also loads of events going on. Like those aren't stopping, right? Because there's a WTC prep or whatever. So factoring both of those in, there's like nothing is obvious. There isn't like a boogeyman faction in the meta. There almost every faction is actually playable, especially in a 8-man team comp. So it really will boil down into whether someone can bring in something that was actually kept as a secret and is actually effective as well. What other teams don't expect.
Absolutely. I don't think we're going to have like the, I don't know, top 10 teams having the same 6 out of 8 armies. I think we're going to see quite a big sort of
disparity.
Like a big disparity. Thank you. I'm glad you're the native English speaker. Yeah, I think we're going to have quite a big disparity between all of the armies that each team is going to choose. It's too late for me, man. It's like 11 p.m. I'm not.
No, it's perfect. You're finally fun.
Danny's not a young man anymore. Apparently, he can't stay straight and do all this thinking.
I'm a morning person. I'll be absolutely honest. So like the first 2 rounds of the WTC each day, I'm going to be like chippy and cherry, and which is good that there's only 2 rounds in a day actually. Now
exactly. I was going to say there aren't any more though, man.
Yeah. So
we're gonna,
but no. So cool. Go for it. What are you gonna say?
We're gonna put out a nap room for you, is what we're going to do.
Yes,
to like make sure you stay nice and rested. We're gonna put out a cot for you.
Also, it's very warm here. So like obviously with me being British, we have very hot summers in Poland, and it's like really humid. And in my apartment, it's like I have no aircon or anything, so I'm sort of like slowly melting, which is not helpful. What was I saying? I forgot.
Air conditioning is very funny because it looks like Europe just doesn't have it and is slowly learning that they need it now.
This is my air. You see this little fan here? This is my air conditioning, and it's currently not working, so it's down.
I'm also going to teach you a trick.
Belgium.
I'm going to teach you a trick to keep cool. Then grab yourself some ice from the freezer and put it in front of it, and just blow some cold air at yourself. Create yourself a little swamp cooler. It'll be great.
A swamp cooler. We don't even have swamps here. But that's a nice little terminology.
A moor cooler? I don't know, man.
Man.
All right. We were talking about. So I think actually the biggest difference in skill is actually going to come because there's a new mission pack coming. So we're going to really see the teams pull themselves back apart a bit based on who can adapt fastest to like the most rules changes the quickest. Because all of a sudden we're going to have new missions with new packs, with new leanings more towards battle line and stuff like that. And so while it might not be like an in-depth balance slate change, there's going to be a bunch of mission changes, and people are going to have to learn how to change their builds for different missions. And it's not the biggest shakeup, but you're probably going to see like that nuanced difference between like a number 1 team and a number 5 team, or a number 5 team and like a number 20 team, kind of like start to pull apart a little bit, is how fast that they're able to adapt to those changes a month
Absolutely.
out.
Absolutely. I think the in-game skill is going to be a lot less important than list building and the matrix. Understanding these little changes that are happening when they do the pairings as well, and the matrix estimations. And then, as you say, the list building is that little nuance when you do have to, the changes, if it's small or big. Being able to take someone out of their comfort zone, try and find a solution to the meta that is not necessarily present now, but that will be upcoming, is one of the ways that teams sort of have that skill disparity now. Because I think on the tabletop, players are getting a lot closer, as we said, but it's the knowledge base and using that knowledge to, how do you call it, sort of look in the future and determine what's happening is what's going to be more on display, I would say, at the WTC.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's going to be the little things at this point, because 40K has always, especially this edition, been an addition of like a 5 to 10% difference in win rate from the topmost faction to the lowest performing faction for the most part. And you're looking at that probably also just 4 teams, right? And so you're going to be looking at all of the little things that can give teams advantages. And sometimes when the meta is very close for factions, it's just going to come down to pairings, which is a whole skill set in and of itself that you have to be able to develop as a team. And those kind of things are where you're going to see the skill expression kind of really come out.
It's not
absolutely
just a matter of a skill set, right? It's also a matter of information. So whether you are the team that has the matchup actually worked out better.
Right.
And this is where being able to sort of react quickly to changes, but also anticipate what the meta might look like going forward. And that's another skill set in this essence. And I think this is also where bigger teams like Poland and the US that have a lot more support at hand might have a little bit of an advantage as well. Whereas smaller teams, like, for example, New Zealand, where they don't have as many people at their disposal to be able to uncover and unravel all of the changes and the implications that might have on the meta. So it's also, for me, I'm quite keen to see how these smaller teams create a system that works for them, try and create a sort of competitive advantage that other teams don't have. What that is, we don't know. We'll find that out. But I'm sure captains will have something up their sleeve, a system perhaps that they can sort of ingrain into their team to try and compete with the bigger teams that have these resources and the time to unravel all the new changes.
And we kind of saw that with New Zealand in their first year, right? Like, they really came out as kind of a dark horse and positioned themselves very well and advanced in front of teams that you probably wouldn't consider them advancing in front of. And meanwhile, you saw some teams like Canada struggle, right? And you saw teams like Australia struggle more than like anticipated, because Australia was a favorite and Canada was in like those upper echelons of teams as well. And you saw some of those teams falter while new teams kind of exposed more pre-existing teams. And this year we have more teams coming. So we have, I know at least China's joining, mostly because some of the Chinese WTC team people are in a Discord that I'm in. But
I think Thailand as well.
Yes, I think Thailand also
I'll
coming.
Find that. There's definitely Mexico, and there were 4 teams from the Eastern Hemisphere. And Malta is actually bringing an actual Malta team rather than being like a 3/8 of the United Nations. I think there might not actually be a United Nations team per se, because from what I've heard, we're looking at 40 teams, 40 participants, 40 teams participating. So yeah, that might mean that there is no United Nations. Let me see if I can find that post.
I kind of like it, actually, that there won't be a UN team, because one of the UN teams last year was basically just Malta, and then like the mercenaries they needed to run a functional team.
Yeah. That is true. I mean, it was it. The upside of it was that you always had, an even amount of teams, and it was an opportunity for people who didn't make their national teams to play. So I'm not so sure that it's actually good. I think I don't actually like that there won't be a UN team.
Yeah,
Dang.
I think like they should have maybe 2 UN teams because it's always good to it gives people a chance to experience WTC without actually being on a team. And 42 is still better than 40, I would say.
Yeah, but that's not divisible by 4, is it? Shit, what's the math? Yeah, it's not. So that
I mean,
you'd
why
have
is
to
it
have 4 teams. Yeah,
I
because the
suppose,
pods, groups, or however you want to call it.
Mm.
So there are 4 teams each. Otherwise, it
Yeah.
just
I think
messes
it's
with
more of a
schedule.
limitation of their pod system at that point.
Yep.
Is that unless you get enough teams to form like a multiple of 4, they're just not going to add more UN teams, which is fine. I think like there are at the end of the day like practical limitations to the kind of event you run, and if that's because you don't want to form like some weird looking pods, or to split up your pods so that you have to change your whole scheduling arrangement in order to get people out of pods. I think it'd be better if there were UN teams just for small countries that still have developing scenes who can't form teams, but I think it's okay in the situation where you just don't have enough teams to like put UN teams just in. Unless you can form 4 UN teams, which would be quite a feat, I think. That's a lot of UN teams.
But at the same time, if another country comes in and puts itself in, then suddenly you got 41. So the argument that it's not divisible by 4 is irrelevant, right? Because they're not going to turn the team away.
Well, yeah, at that point they'd
Right.
have to make it divisible by 4, right?
Yeah.
I guess.
I think the UN, if it's a UN team versus like an actual country's team, those are probably a little bit two different things in their consideration, I think, as an organization.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah,
they're going to
100%.
prioritize countries 100% over the effort of putting a UN team in. But I do think it is nice to have them in. So
yeah, I think it's fine. I think it all just comes down to the needs of the event at that point, right? Or at a certain point. Do we have more questions from chat today, Joker? Or do we just have the 2 questions from Sam today?
No, we just had the 2 questions from the most loyal fan on Earth, who is Sam.
It's okay. You got to have at least one.
Lemon.
Yeah, Sam Lemon.
You have to have one fanboy who is just with you all the time. And it's good that you have a Sam, because Sam is a good one.
Yeah, he's fantastic. I was looking for the list of new participants, or at least the ones that have announced themselves, but I cannot find it for the life of me. I think it was China, Thailand, Japan, and Korea.
Yeah, Korea is one of them. Korea is hosting a team, yeah.
That's really cool, actually. So
100%.
A lot more from these sort of like Asia territories is getting more involved, which is awesome because that kind of highlights the spread that WTC is having across the world, which is amazing to see.
It actually puts the W in WTC, right?
Yes.
When you fully cover your hemispheres, yeah.
Yeah, so at least we have that going for us. And I think it's interesting, right? Because we're talking about countries that have like a lot of people, so living in them. So Warhammer might actually be big and we might not know about it because there isn't like a lot of information flow from that side of the world regarding events and such. So yeah, I'm very curious, and hopefully we will bring all of those onto Contact Us for some interviews and find out what 40k is like over there.
Well, I know that the Korean tournament scene uses like Pun or something like that for their like tournament organization, which is like something else, something totally different than usual. It's very interesting, only because some of them are in the Stat Check Discord talking about how they organize their tournaments and tournament scenes. It's very interesting and slightly different.
You know, those folks have StarCraft rankings in their newspapers, so I'm all for it. All right. I know. Guys, any last comments? I think we are ready to wrap up here.
Good to go.
Danny's just muted himself.
I
for
am.
further
Yeah,
question.
sorry,
Perfect.
I was typing. I'm half asleep already. I'm dreaming of bed already.
All right. Well, you go there. Thanks, guys, for joining in. Thank you to our listeners. And as I was saying, we will now be shortly. We will be bringing the run-up series of interviews with as many teams as we can. And a massive thank you to our sponsors, our Patreons, sponsors Army Painter and Weyland-Yutani. You can find the links to their pages in the video description below. Make sure to check them out. And as usual, if you like what we do, hit the subscribe button on YouTube, hit the like button on Facebook. Consider becoming a patron, obviously. Thank you for today, and thank you, Nathan and Danny, for joining in.
Thank you.
And see you soon.
Yep, until next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.